Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending. Thank you for those in the gallery for coming. And this is the order of business for full council on Wednesday, the 20th of March, 2024. I'll go through the emergency drills first. There are no planned fire drills during this meeting. If you hear the fire alarm sound, please treat it as a real emergency and evacuate the building via the nearest escape route. The nearest escape route is via the stairs to your left as you leave the council chamber or public gallery. Exit by the door at the back of the building and walk across the inner car park to the evacuation point, which is the pavement opposite the police station. The lifts can't be used in the event of an emergency. Please do not re-enter the building until you're advised it is safe to do so by a member of staff. I would like to advise both members of the public and press this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live. Mobile phones should be switched off unless they are being used for the meeting. Please only speak when I ask you to do so and speak clearly into the microphones. Okay, so welcome everybody. I've got a few apologies. I've got Councillor Brading, Ellis and Councillor Ray Redrup are not here. And I think Councillor Price is going to be joining us shortly. So we'll welcome him when he comes in. And thank you to Francis here this evening as our senior governance advisor to advise us on any legal issues we have. Okay. I will move on to item 1, which is the minutes. Is there anyone got any comments on the minutes from the last meeting? No, is everyone in agreement with those minutes? Could you raise your hand of affirmation if you are? Yes, I think that's everybody. Thank you. I will just sign those minutes. Thank you. On to item 2. Have we got any declarations of interest from anyone? No, I know declarations of interest in any of the items on tonight's agenda. And then on to item 3, which is the public questions. So I have got 2 written questions that we have received in advance, and there is number 1 is a question from Mr. S. Richards to the Cabinet Member for Children's Services, Education and Corporate Functions. He asks, in light of Councillor Bacon's published New Year's resolution a few weeks ago to enable island schools to deliver the best possible quality of education, what evidence and research has the Cabinet Member for Children's Services, Education and Corporate Functions considered regarding the impact on pupil attainment and education standards of the recommendation to continue implementation of a 2-week October half-term across local authority schools on the Isle of Wight? Councillor Bacon, would you like to respond to that?
Tend to be Councillor Dorr for a moment. Yes, perhaps I should indicate, and for members' assistance, they might be interested or puzzled why you're reading out the question, Chair. The question, I believe, was submitted or believed to have been submitted for Cabinet last week, but it got lost in the administrative process. I was contacted by Mr. Richards about this, I think, over the weekend, and gave him a reply by email, but it was undertaken that he should get the opportunity to have his question asked and responded to in public. So I will reiterate the apology that was given to him. There was very simply an error, and the question got lost somewhere, so it didn't appear at Cabinet as he had hoped. The response, however, is this. The 2-week October half term has been the subject of consultation on a number of occasions since 2019 and continues to be supported by a range of stakeholders, including education professionals. Views have included that having a more balanced school year with regular breaks in the middle and at the end of each term helps to maximise well-being and helps schools to plan learning more effectively. In addition, there is national and international research which highlights that long summer holidays can create unhelpful gaps in learning, and if they were shorter, children and young people would retain information better. The 2-week half term allows us to shorten the summer holiday, thereby providing children and young people with the opportunity to retain information taught in the summer term into the autumn term. We will again be seeking views on this as part of the new education strategy for the island, a draft version of which we aim to publish in the summer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bacon. The next question is from a Miss H. Wagstaff. And her question is, there are recommendations, this is to the Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care and Public Health. There are recommendations from the Director of Public Health's annual report for childhood obesity, a call to action. Are there any provisions or a similar report regarding the monitoring of underweight children in schools, considering the rise of mental health and eating disorders in children? The cost of living crisis and the increase in school meal and food costs, as well as the quality of food provided by outside catering companies and monitoring of free school meal uptake. Do children eat free school meals provided, not just a tray bake or a slice of pizza at break time, for example, in the secondary schools? And do we have a response from Councillor Andre, please?
We do indeed. Thank you, Chair. So to Ms Wagstaff, thank you for raising the important issue regarding the monitoring of underweight children in schools and highlighting a number of associated issues that some of our young children, some of our children and young people will be facing. Achieving a healthy weight in childhood is important for a child's physical, social and mental well-being and readiness to learn, which also sets the foundation for their health and well-being in adulthood. The Director of Public Health's report is an independent report, and this year a focus on obesity does not detract from other important health issues. Through delivery of the National Child Measurement Programme, Isle of Wight Council annually monitors the prevalence of underweight children in schools. The NCMP is a nationally mandated public health programme that measures children's height and weight in reception and in Year 6 to calculate their weight category as being either underweight, healthy weight, overweight or very overweight. One of the key aims of the NCMP is to increase public and professional understanding of weight issues in children. In addition to providing population level data that allow us to track trends, we act on results from the NCMP to ensure there is local provision of initiatives for families to support their children being a healthy weight. Children's weight and height information is sensitively shared with parents and carers in feedback letters, and support also offered by school nurses about their child's measurements, weight, growth, body image, and eating patterns, as well as on any other concerns parents, carers may have about their children's physical and emotional health. Finally, as mentioned in the Director of Public Health's annual report for childhood obesity call to action, the Isle of Wight takes a whole setting approach to healthy weight. Healthy eating is a component of the Peach Public Health Programme for all early years and school settings for the island, providing information and advice, teaching resources, and training on a range of health issues. On the topic of healthy eating, it brings together in one place both national and local guidance, example policies, and practical toolkits. The education setting approach to healthy weight includes provision of a nutritious and varied menu in the school's meal service and free school meals for some of our island children. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andre. That's all the written questions. I have an oral question from some from the gallery. So welcome to those in the gallery. Mr. A. Whitaker from Shanklin, would you like to ask your question? Who would like to answer that question? Councillor Jordan?
Thank you. Same problem now. That's King, is it? Oh, it is working. Yeah, thank you. I'm not cited exactly on the operational details of that, but we will get the dates for you and write to you with the information that you're asking for, Adrian.
Also, part of my last year's question was about the clock tower on in the Shanklin seafront. The email I received from Democratic Services said those works will also be completed by the summer. Has that contractor been appointed as well? Unfortunately, as most of the councillors know, the Spa site, Shanklin, the contractor pulled out. Shanklin Town Council had a presentation from the Isle of Wight Council showing us the plans. One of my questions at that meeting was, if the contractor pulled out, would the Isle of Wight Council then look at the derelict fishermen's cottages and the arches? I was told 2 years ago by, I think it was something from the Regen team, that the likelihood of the contractor pulling out was pretty slim, and that should never be the case. Unfortunately, the contractor has pulled out. The Isle of Wight Council owns the old fishermen's cottages, the toilets, and all the arches. Again, what is the council's plans to get rid of these eyesores? They're fit for demolition. They're not being used, and it should be looked at in part of the Osborne step structure, because if the whole thing was demolished, it would give you more parking spaces, and you may be able to do something with the steps.
Thank you. Councillor Jones-Evans might have a little more information than I have, but we will get back to you on the clock tower. And I know the site of the spa is being remarketed, but Councillor Jones-Evans is the cabinet member and may have slightly more information than me, but let's try.
Yeah, thank you, Leader, and thank you, Mr. Whitaker, Councillor Whitaker, sorry for the question. Yeah, obviously, huge disappointment about Shanklin's Spa site and the situation with the developer. That's all down to, unfortunately, the economic situation we have in the country ever since Prime Minister Truss and her disastrous economic policy. So things have taken a turn for the worse in that situation, but we are reviewing the whole site. It's a really, really important regen site still. It's important to the island, not only just to Shanklin. So we'll be reviewing it in the round, including all the other areas you mentioned. So it's not off the radar by any chance. We were a long way down the road of that development coming forward, as you know.
Okay, thank you. But it would be good to have something done for this coming summer, because as I did point out before, the clock tower is actually a grade 2 listed structure, and it should never have been allowed to get into the state in the first place.
Thank you, Councillor Whitaker. Thank you. We'll take those questions on board. And I think you can follow up with the members if you've got further questions on that. Thank you. That's all our questions. So on to item 4, the chairman's official announcement. Give you an update on what I've been doing. So this evening before this full council meeting, I didn't have our usual period of reflection, but we had a little recognition for the Mermaid Atlantic team, and we welcomed them in, and so we chatted to them about their challenge and presented them with a letter of congratulations to thank them for being great ambassadors for the island and the educational program that they're sort of doing with the children going into schools, talking about marine conservation and planting seagrass, etc., etc. So not just the challenge they did, but the ongoing education they're doing for people on the island, and just to keep inspiring our younger generation to look after our seas. So that was really inspiring and great to have those guys in. So thank you and congratulations to them again. I've also, on Friday, I gave out awards to businesses and individuals that have reached green impact achievements. So the Green Impact Awards are an annual event that shines a spotlight on those who have enabled positive environmental change. So it's great to see those businesses that have been working towards that and are promoting that within their workplace. So it was a great awards day at Building 41. So I was pleased to be there. And I went to the RNLI bicentenary. It's celebrated this year, and I attended a service in Brook, as that village is one of the first areas on the island to have had a lifeboat station. So it was really nice to commemorate that massive anniversary they've got coming up. And there's going to be lots of different things throughout the year that I hope you will all attend. I was delighted to attend the Band of His Majesty's Royal Marines live in concert with Councillor Dorr, who accompanied me there, and it was at Medina Theatre. It was a packed auditorium, and it just showed the support on the island for the armed forces, that our residents really are behind that, and they were so pleased to be able to there and see that live in concert. It was quite magnificent. As usual, I've attended several citizenship ceremonies. These are always an enjoyable occasion, and we continue to welcome those who have been awarded British citizenship to our island. And it was a pleasure to be asked to open Pops Wood at the weekend. It is a beautiful community area in Benbridge, and it celebrates nature and is a wonderful resource for residents and visitors to explore. So thank you, Councillor Jordan, for asking me to come along and meet those residents and see that great area to be used for residents and all, visitors, and anyone can go there. It's a lovely place to visit. So that's what I've been up to recently, and thank you for listening. I will move on to the next item. Item 5 is the Leaders Update Report. Councillor Jordan, would you like to introduce that?
Thank you, Chair. So my report, page 25 and 20, sorry, where you were, page 23, page 24. Couple of things to point out. I won't labour it as usual, because you've all had an opportunity to read it if you're interested in doing so. But some public health stuff we've been doing through our drink and drug initiatives, with extra money from a grant from government's gone into those initiatives, which is always helpful. A little more money to put into helping people overcome some of their problems with drink and drugs. We've also had a stakeholder meeting to test out our preparedness for measles outbreak. So the public health team are looking at that. And we're also reviewing and planning for both flu and COVID-19 COVID vaccinations. On the financial front, our revenue team have managed to send out all of the council tax bills in March, middle of March, to just over 72,000 homes, 7,500 businesses. That's timely and helps us, assuming people pay us on time or through a payment method helps the finances of this council. And on children's services, we now have our team in place, new team, and very much in listening round the island, meeting with stakeholders, schools, head teachers and so on, and working towards a new plan for a strategy to deal with the issues that face this island on education. In grant funding, we've had numbers, but one recognisable one, 536,000 as part of the Rural England Prosperity Fund. That will go to funding certain schemes. And finally, we had notification after some delays of the Household Support Fund from government, which most local authorities, including ourselves, had pressured government to maintain, and we've had a positive reply, and we will now see if there are any conditions. There usually are with all the grant fundings we get, and put into place a programme to deliver that. That's a brief update of the report. The rest is there in detail, and I'm happy to take any questions on it. Thank you all.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan, for that. Just to say, with regard to the children's services, it's nice to see them on the island on a regular basis, and it certainly seems to be working very well. So I think we should pass our thanks on to them for that. Can I just mention that stakeholders also include employers? So the business sector should definitely be involved in talking to them more generally, if at all possible.
Sure it is, Councillor Stewart, and I'll sit on and make sure that's done.
Councillor Lilly.
Thank you, Chair. You mentioned the household support. In light of the government only now giving a further 6 months to that fund, not a full 12 months, and the real importance of that fund, things like pantries, food pantries, a range of cost of living schemes. What does the Isle of Wight Council propose to do about the other 6 months next financial year? Because especially as I'm chair of the Policy and Scrutiny Committee of Health and Social Care, we had a presentation from Isle of Wight Food Bank and Food, and they basically couldn't survive without that support in the next coming year. So 6 months will still leave a hole. So what do you intend to, in that, cover that other 6 months?
So firstly, we need to see what the conditions are associated with the initial grant that we've been confirmed we shall receive. So the programme that comes out of that may last longer. We'll have to see when we know what the conditions are. But you'll remember in our budget we set aside some community funds that I would hope people around this island can access to deliver some of those projects and those holes to plug where that's required. So that will be our plan. We'll see what the conditions are. We will develop the programme out once we know what the conditions are, and if necessary for the remaining part, we will look to our community fund that we set aside for these kinds of projects. I hope that's helpful, Mike.
Councillor Jones-Evans.
Thank you. Leader, I was very, very pleased seeing your report that you've highlighted the Open for Business Isle of Wight event. It's going to be at Dean Leisure Centre this Saturday, showing all the roles we have at the council and apprenticeship and trainee roles. I'm just wondering how important you think it is for us to grow our own as a council.
Very much so, and good opportunity. Thanks for that. I should have mentioned that in my little summary, so thank you for that, Councillor Jones-Evans. It's extraordinarily important part of our important and vital economy that we encourage and grow our own businesses, and would encourage anyone that's free on Saturday to get down there and provide a little bit of support, insight, and understand what we're trying to do to bring forward those small businesses on the island. So good event, and thank you for mentioning that, Julie.
Councillor Jarman.
Thank you, Chair. A stance appearing to be against the democratic will of the council by the leader was reported in Allowance media in relation to the successful 24-25 budget, incorporating
I've pressed the button to stop that.
there were two on at the same. I'll be Dave Adams. Starting again. A stance appearing to be against the democratic will of council by the leader was reported in Allowance media in relation to the successful 24-25 budget, incorporating the joint Conservative and Empowering Islanders amendment. Specifically, the leader was quoted as having declared in relation to the agreed budget.
Councillor Jarman, it's not in the report, I'm afraid, so I can only accept questions on.
This is in the last paragraph of the report. Let's see, first line budget. Leaders report, budget.
Don't think it's mentioned as the actual budget decision in the report.
Mentions budget. This is a question on budget.
Not Isle of Wight Council budget, so it's
Government
not.
budget.
You can ask that perhaps later at the end of members' questions, if it's not in this report.
Says recent budget.
It's the
Government, it's
government's
not Isle
budget,
of Wight
Chris.
Council budget.
It's the government's budget.
If we
Read
could
it
save that
carefully.
one for later,
Okay.
then thank you.
In the spirit as I did with Councillor Blake, if you're quite prepared, within your rights to ask that under less. If you want to go ahead, I'll answer it, Chris. You're happy to wait.
Councillor Quigley.
Mine is a little bit tenuous, but I'll link it to open for business. Open for business, and I've got to leave early, so you'll have to cut me some slack. Could the leader inform us of the possible action the council can take in regard of the dire situation of the ferries, and that relates to open for business? I've asked it now. Come on.
I think you also might have to leave that to members' questions, I'm afraid. If someone else could take that mantle on, then that would be more appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I am quite prepared to answer these questions. I don't want to use this as some kind of avoidance because you can ask it later. In the spirit of trying to give out the information that you want to hear, or maybe not want to hear, I'm prepared to do it and happy to do it at the appropriate moment. I don't want it to feel that it should be about what's in the report. If you want to ask something else, I'll answer it if I can.
We'll move on to the other ones and then come back to them if we've got time, perhaps. Councillor Ward.
Chairman, thank you. I'm going to withdraw my question because it was a similar budget question. Thank you.
Councillor Master.
Fine, it's not even tenuous, it is in the report. So mine's a question about the Rural England Prosperity Fund. I have some really fantastic young businesses in my ward, being a very rural ward such as Duxmore Botanics. How in April will I be able to direct them to be able to claim from this fund? And if I talk to them about the moment, do we know how the split will be and how much they can claim for? I'd be really interested because I do have, in a rural ward, lots of really exciting businesses that I'd like to give them the heads up about it.
Again, if I may, Councillor Jones Evans has got those numbers on her fingertips, I feel.
Yeah,
I do have them.
thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Moss, for the question. Yes, it will be the final details of the split of the fund will be made clear very soon. We're just working out the actual parameters of the application process. It'll probably involve some match funding, as capital projects, and I think the total envelope we're looking at for £250,000. There are other projects, some other capital projects that are coming out of that as well. Although we got this award back in November 2022, it's taken a while to work out the parameters of how it's going to be spent across the island. So there will be big press release, big launch of it, so everyone should know about it. But equally, every member will be alerted via the press release, so you can then let your local businesses know. But this is slightly different from other funds, whereas it actually covers the whole of the Isle of Wight. Whereas previously it was just what we call rural areas, but now the whole of the Isle of Wight has been deemed as rural by DEFRA. And this fund is to go alongside the UK Share Prosperity Fund, which we're already using within Regen. So it is basically a capital amount to support the work of that fund, which has been running for about a year and a half now. Hope that's helpful.
Thank you. Councillor Garrett.
Thank you, Chair. This is most definitely under paragraph 3 of the leader's report relating to the preparedness for an outbreak of measles. I just wondered if the leader would comment or maybe sort of instruct at some point some briefing around this area. It is nearly 4 years since we entered lockdown in 2020. A great many extraordinary measures had to take place at that time. The chief executive at the time had a great deal of decision-making power, and it would be useful, I think, for all members who were key stakeholders. Many were involved in supporting communities during that time, to understand how much the learning from that year and the years after has informed our preparedness for hopefully a purely hypothetical outbreak.
Thank you, Andrew. Absolutely. We'll put into place if that's what you're asking for, all members briefing by the Director of Public Health and his team to explain what we're doing in those kinds of contingencies and what we've learned from our flu vaccinations already and COVID, of course. Is that okay, Andrew? Thank you.
We have 3 minutes left, I believe, if there's anyone else. We've made a note of the people that requested questions before, so we can come to those later. Are we all happy to move on to the next item if there's no more questions for the leader at this point? Okay, we'll move on to item 6, the report of the Deputy Monitoring Officer. This is an approval of the Members' Allowance Scheme. This will be introduced by our Senior Governance Advisor, Mr. Fernandez. So over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Chairman, this report is seeking the approval of the Members' Allowance Scheme for 24/5. The statutory scheme was last adopted in 2022. This is just an annual update. The Council has a legal obligation to agree a scheme every year by the 31st of March. So this is part of that compliance. In terms of the scheme itself, I have consulted the independent people. There's 3 of them now. A new one I hadn't consulted at the time of drafting this report, but I have consulted with her since, and she agrees with the recommendations in this report. Basically, all the report is looking to do is to seek agreement to adopt a scheme and to apply the NJC indexing uplift, which is not determined yet. When we know what that figure is, I shall consult the independent people again and agree a scheme which will apply to this. So all we're looking for is approval of this scheme subject to the indexing allowance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. So I will formally move that request forward, that paper and that report. So could I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Garrett, thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on that paper? Or should we go to the vote on that? All those for that recommendation? Is there any against? Over there. Any abstentions? Those, yep. Okay, thank you, but that one is passed, that report. Thank you, Mr. Fernandez, for that one. And we're moving on to 6.2, which is the report of the appointment to Ryde Town Board. But I believe this paper has been withdrawn, an officer decision. The chairman of the Ryde Town Board is going to make those appointments at a separate time, not a full council decision. Does anyone want to speak on that? Or I moved straight on to that. I meant no. Councillor Brodie?
Yeah, I just note what you just said, but I'm interested in what is the explanation for this? Surely any appointment of councillors from this council should be made by this council, not by some independent person whose name I don't even know. You.
Mr. Fernandez, if you're able to explain, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of this, the Ryde board, members might not be aware, but this is a brand new board set up by government. The first guidance we got from this was in December last year. Guidance was not entirely clear, but in terms of elected member appointments and involvement, but the guidance was very, very clear in terms of the powers of the chair. So I think the government's very clear about the fact that the chair should be running these boards. So we initially thought that as Councillor Brodie is a councillor appointment, since then we've got clarification from the chair, who has confirmed very clearly in writing to us that the appointment of the elected members is a matter for him, as it is for other members on the board. And he has confirmed that he received this, he spoke to the relevant government department, and that is their view. So I think as far as we're concerned, and we only got the email today, that's why this report is so late. So we're just following guidance.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez.
Yeah, just
Councillor Brodie?
can I ask Chair how the chair of this board was appointed? I mean, I haven't paid that much attention. I'm a Newport councillor, and I'm a bit resentful that Ryde got this money and not Ryde. Quite rightly so, in my view, given the level of deprivation in my part of Newport. But I'd like to know how they were appointed, but also can we have sight of this letter from this mysterious person? Maybe somebody could tell me who it is. Thank you.
Thank you. If you like me, I'll say nothing mysterious. The chair of the Ryde Town Board is the chief executive of the Chamber of Commerce. The guidance from DLUC is very much that the chair would select the members of the board. That's part of the guidance that's been referred to here. The board is a non-constituted board. It's not an outside body in the sense that this council needs to appoint members to it, which is where the confusion started on the original guidance. I can't comment on whether the chairman's email to whether it was your Justin Francis, whether that's disclosable or not, that's not for me to comment on, Jeff. But I'm very clear. For me personally, I spoke to the director of the national director, Adam Hawksby, of the Ryde Town Boards last Thursday, and he was absolutely adamantly clear that absolutely not should the bureaucratic process be involved in this. There are 77 town boards. Not one other town has done this, and he didn't want, his view was he didn't want to see it in this case either. And that he was clear that the guidance that had been given was absolutely that the chairman should appoint his board. That's as most as I can tell you, Jeff.
Councillor Robertson, and then I'll come to Councillor Jarman.
Thank you, Chair. So the governance advisor has just told us that the chair of the town board sent an email today, no conversation with government. That's his reason. The leader of the council has just told us, no, there was a phone call last Friday, someone in the department, and that's his reason. Please clarify this phone call you received.
I never mentioned phone call. I met with Adam Hawkesby last Thursday.
My apologies. A meeting last Thursday is the council leader's reason. Do we have absolutely no documentary evidence from government, from the department, as to why this council should pull the paper it's put on the agenda? This is quite a serious matter. This council gets to put 2 councillors onto town board that can distribute £20 million. Are you really saying we've recruited an individual to handpick any one of 39 of us at his discretion?
Yes.
And you're comfortable with that, council leader and chair, at your discretion? You're comfortable with that? Who appointed him?
I believe there was an appointment process, and I believe if that's the
Beliefs, can we have some more certainty, Chair? Not beliefs and oral assurances, some documentary evidence.
certainty that all the other boards have been dealt with in exactly that way, then I think we should follow suit.
No, are you just relying on the leader saying that now, or have
No,
you seen
On
anything?
the advice I got from officers earlier, and I don't think they are going to give me.
He's not telling you that. The governance advisor is telling you he got an email from the chair of the board, not from government.
That is, well, I'm happy with that. That's how it is normally processed.
You're happy that's how this government has this council has a role in spending 20 million?
I'm happy.
Well, I haven't seen a letter from the government. Nobody has.
I'm happy with the advice I've been given to withdraw it at this point in time. That's not saying that it couldn't be other advice at another point. So I think we should leave it with how it is dealt with. Councillor Jarman next.
I have to say, I feel remarkably uncomfortable with what I'm hearing here. Other people may acquiesce to it softly. I don't feel so inclined. This paper has the council all over it. There are obligations on the council here in paragraph 15, regards our chief finance officer. There are obligations here in terms of paragraph 7, the council being an accountable body. If we have councillors who are going to be chosen by someone outside of this council in such a role which has an impact directly on the finances of this council and on the responsibility of its chief finance officer, page 15, and requires reporting by this council, I cannot see that the will of this council should be bypassed in any manner at all. Perhaps I'm just stupid in this regard, but I think this is most definitively a council matter.
Councillor Jordan.
There is no financial obligation of this council. You need to read the guidance. There is plenty of guidance out there. It's available. You can read it. The additional emails support the guidance, and the town board is independent of this council. That's the intention of government. That's the intention of DLUC. Well, it is, Joe. They've made it very clear. They've made it very clear that they are an independent board set up. This council is no more than the responsible authority that oversees the money for the projects, and that has to be seen in the context of a list of projects have to be put forward to DLUC by July this year for their approval, and the council will have to measure that those projects are delivered as per the project list sent to DLUC. That is the extent of this council's interest in this. If you go and read the guidance instead of believe I heard the things about, do you believe this and believe that. We just heard that this council has financial obligations. No, it does not. And if you read the guidance, you'll see why it does not. The board is independent of this council, utterly independent. And what DLUC and the government want to see is non-bureaucratic process. They want community members on the board delivering community projects in the community.
Or supplementary fund.
And I'm going to Councillor Love next, so that everybody gets a chance.
Thank you, Chair. Can I recommend that we request the guidance of the government and that we get some clarity on the very clear. No misunderstandings anyway. That would be my suggestion at this point. Don't have the clarity unless, of course, you have the clarity of that information now.
Mr. Fernandez?
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the guidance is one issue council. And ask the chair whether we can share what he has sent to us. Yeah.
Okay, so unless there's other questions that are different than what we've already had, okay? I did have Councillor Spink first and then Councillor Mosdale. Councillor Spink.
What I was going to suggest, I don't know if it's a bureaucratic policy. It seems to me electing it from this council is a democratic, not a bureaucratic function. Not a democratic. Well, if I just may, if I may continue, may I continue? And I was going to suggest exactly what Councillor Love has suggested, that this matter be put on the next agenda for it to be looked into and for this council to vote. I see you shaking your head. If we vote on something which is ultra vires, then so be it. But this council wishes to express, that seems to me, its view of this decision. And this council does not like the removal of agenda items without clear reasons.
Decision for this council. A decision for this council. It is an independent board
It's my
with guidance on how the members are selected.
Speak.
Councillor Mosdale.
Thank you. So one, I listened to Councillor Jordan and thank you for your explanation, but actually it made me more worried because the stuff that you just said seems like a huge responsibility for this council and a huge amount of oversight. So it didn't calm me down. And so my concern is that we're sat here at full council with a report of nearly 30 pages long. Councillor Jordan, it's my turn. I listen to you, so please. But actually, I'm speaking. That's quite rude to be talking and not concentrating on what I'm saying.
What's your question, Councillor Mosdale?
Thank you. So my point is, one, it sounds like a huge responsibility for this council, and I get that the guidance is there, but my concern is we've got a full council's papers with officers' time that's been paid for a report that's been prepared, when actually the guidance was there in the first place to say that this shouldn't be happening. So I think there should be a few questions asked of how this actual report got to this point of being here in the first place, if this guidance has been up here all along. That's just my point. I'd like to see the guidance. I will read the guidance, but I have now more concerns than I had before. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Councillor Mosdale. Yes, I think we should look at having the more information into that, but the paper is withdrawn from this evening and I have let you have comments on it because I feared that would happen anyway, whether it was done now or afterwards. So you've been able to speak on that, but If it is appropriate to bring it back, then that could happen, but it depends what the advice we get afterwards is. So I'm now moving
Just
on
request that
to-
it's an agenda item for the next full.
only if
council
it's
meeting.
appropriate, I'm afraid,
But I
Councillor
think
Spink, because it
I-
may not be appropriate to be an
Will
agenda
you
item because that's where it's been pulled. But I will find out.
As having responsibility for the agenda, Chair, will you undertake to issue a paper on whether it's appropriate or not and put it on the agenda if you conclude that it is?
I wouldn't confirm that right now, but it will be looked into. So I'm moving on to item 7 now.
Second the motion of councillor Spink.
No,
Yes,
it's not a motion.
it is a
There
motion.
isn't a motion because there isn't a paper in front of us to put a
Motion
motion
not
on.
on notice, which I move now. And it's seconded now by councillor Jarman.
To do what?
Go to the vote on it.
Could you clarify what you are requesting, councillor
I
Spink?
think it's perfectly clear. I'm requesting that it be an agenda item next time at your discretion, but your discretion should be exercised on a paper which is put before this council.
Well, I have already agreed that would be on my discretion, but because we don't have a paper to do, it's,
Can you produce one?
yes, but it's been withdrawn.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair. Can I ask that councillor Spink clarify which part of the constitution that he refers to where he can raise an item without notice? Just by way of explanation.
It's the section in the constitution on notices not on, on motions not on notice.
Yes, I have this right in front of me, councillor Spink. If you look at page 1, shall I give you
I don't have the constitution in front of me. I hadn't foreseen that this was going to be withdrawn in this way.
Yeah, because.
But I'll take your interpretation and you can read it.
Thank you, thank you. My interpretation is this is not a motion that you can move without notice, is my interpretation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. So we will move on to item 7, which is the report of the Cabinet Member for Planning, Coastal Protection and Flooding. It's the Island Planning Strategy, and I believe Councillor Fuller will introduce this item. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Welcome back to Groundhog Day. The Island Planning Strategy, it's been 7 years in the making, and we've had feedback from hundreds of residents. And just to remind councillors that so far this has cost this authority £660,000. For members that are unaware, local plans are mandatory. It's an essential tool in scrutinising planning applications. As regular members and attendee of planning committees since 1995, it's very clear that the Iron Core strategy does not go far enough for our local community. We hear this regularly by members of the planning committee who says, we would like to do this, we would like to do that. Well, we don't have the policy to do that. That policy is out of date. What we are trying to achieve within the Iron Planning Strategy is enabling the right housing for the right people in the right places. That is one of the concerns that has come back previously, that is not being achieved. And we want to ensure that, you know, there are policies, and I'm looking at Councillor Nicholson there, over there, when Barry Abraham was doing my job, I remember Councillor Nicholson saying to me, what's all this about settlement boundaries? We're the only local planning authority that allows development immediately adjacent to. That opens up a whole can of worms. That can of worms, I hope the Island Planning Strategy will close. Since 2021, further consultation has taken place, which has changed the plan. And where appropriate, those changes from full council, from corporate scrutiny, from policy and scrutiny, from the Policy and Scrutiny Committee for Neighbourhoods and Regeneration, Isle of Wight councillors, individuals and
town and parish councils have been incorporated and embedded within this plan. In addition, over recent months, commitment has been given to provide much deeper discounts, supporting housing being made available for people on an affordable rent. Social housing, this is something that again is lacking in our current plan that we want to reverse. More social housing, more front doors for people on low incomes to be able to walk into. That is so important. Although there are currently powers for officers members to request this, as was the case in Bembridge, this plan can and potentially will, if adopted, see discounts of up to 40%. I know there was discussion with Councillor Robertson about the issues in Bembridge. We managed to get a 25% deeper discount on properties with deeper discounts. This plan will allow deeper discounts of up to 40%, which is good for island residents living in the Bembridge community that we know are unable to get a home over their head because the cost is too high. In addition, the island planning strategy offers a reset on the housing number for the island. That housing number under the standard methodology is 730. We have looked to reduce that as far as we can get it, and we are down to 453. That is what we can have under supporting the IPS, or what we will lose if we don't. Housing numbers 38% lower than the standard method, which is the 453. We demonstrate a 5-year housing land supply. Housing delivery test results over 75%. Use policies to help with it in the decision making. You know, I mentioned earlier on about planning committee and some of the difficult decisions they have had to make with respect to recent planning applications. Deeper discounting on affordable housing, mentioned that. We align this with the peer review that members wanted us to carry out some 2 years ago. We also have a requirement from government to update our island planning strategy, and the deadline to do that is 2025. We're already on course for that, but we need to get ourselves together to make sure that this goes further. I know that there are residents that are still concerned that the Isle of Wight Council have not included items that they wanted to. Again, we will aim to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Do I have a seconder for this? Councillor Bacon, thank you. Okay, a second. Do you wish to speak on the item? No.
I'm sorry, what was the motion? We haven't had a motion, have we?
Yeah, the paper, the island planning strategy. Oh, sorry, well, recommendation then. It's still a second.
If there's a recommendation, there has to then follow a motion based on that recommendation, doesn't there?
So we've had a seconder for the report. It says here to introduce the report, which Councillor has done, and we've got a seconder for that. So he doesn't wish to speak. So would any other member wish to speak on this report? Councillor Spink.
If we've got a motion or a recommendation, I'd like to amend it. And I'd like to amend it as follows: that the draft island planning strategy is returned to Cabinet with a request that Cabinet considers the matters set out below and returns the draft island planning strategy not later than the end of April of this year to full council, with the said matters included in a revised draft island planning strategy, or alternatively, Cabinet shall inform full council of the reasons why the said matters are, in its opinion, unsuitable to included in a revised version of the planning strategy. That said matters referred to above are: 1, that paragraph 6.15 is amended as in red below. Now, I appreciate you can't see if they're red in below, but when I leave a copy, you'll be clear. Now my computer's gone off. Just bear with me a second, please. I don't know why it's done that. It's okay. Okay.
Chair, an amendment like this would have been handy to have in advance, the size of it.
I'm sorry.
It will be,
My amendment yet.
I am going to
But
let
you're not
councillors,
even halfway through it, Peter. I
Spinks
still not
finish.
understand what's been said. It's word to.
I will let him get to the end of what he is proposing, but I will also be asking for advice from Mr Fernandez on how, if we can indeed even do that for this
Can we
recommendation.
get a copy of it, Chair? Because this is quite a long, you've got a copy.
Well, I don't mind providing copies, but my point is this, I'm entitled to amend. I don't mind if you want to put this back for me to provide copies, but I'm entitled to make an amendment not on notice and therefore without providing a written copy. But I don't want to be difficult, but I don't have written
I'm
copies for
just
everyone.
going to ask Mr Fernandez for advice about that amendment on notice, of whether we are able to do that.
Not an amendment on notice, it's not on notice. My understanding is that any motion before this council may be amended, and that's all I'm seeking to do. Justin Thorne, I took advice from Justin Thorne this morning, and he said that I could do so.
Mr Fernandez.
Thank you, Chair. There is a provision in the Constitution that I referred to earlier that allows you to amend a motion without notice. I think the issue, Chair, for this meeting is that one, it might have been helpful if the member had the conversation with the mover, because it might have been okay.
May I just interrupt you there? The leader, as he well knows, and I have had numerous conversations, including me requesting a deferment, and they were refused. So I've made this application at short notice and without copies because of the unreasonable, in my view, refusal of the leader of this council to accede to my request.
Thank you. Thank you. Through you, Chair. The issue in terms of an amendment to a motion is that this council, there are rules in terms of how you amend a motion. You can't negate a motion, for example. There are rules in the Constitution. And I think from the member's point of view, you need to understand how this amendment affects the report. And I think it's quite reasonable for members to ask for this motion in writing so that they can consider it and its impact on the report. And out of respect for the mover of the motion, he may well have issues with it. So I think what I'd suggest, Chair, is that we do ask for this in writing. Members are given an opportunity to consider it. Thank you.
May I just ask when you want it? Are you saying that they should be given it in writing and considered at this meeting, or will the?
Yes, I can ask for adjournment, which I will do in a moment,
Happy
and
for
so
there
that
to
we
be an
can
adjournment.
circulate the information so that we're all clear quite on what you're proposing.
Happy for there to be an adjournment. As I've said, I've constantly been in touch with the leader of this council for the last 3 days, asking for it.
Come to Councillor Mosdo before our adjournment, though.
Yeah, thank you. I was actually going to suggest that because I don't know if one of the officers, instead of having a great long adjournment, is to actually maybe move this slightly down and for one of the Democratic officers to go and print the actual, because there is some, I've read it and there is some stuff that's actually quite helpful in there. And I think it's only asking for a deferment to the end of April. So my recommendation is we move it on the agenda so we don't wait for ages for it to be copied, and then we all get a chance to read the amendment. Would be useful.
Chair, how come some councillors have this amendment prior and I haven't? I'm not aware of this.
I don't believe it's been
lots of stuff I
circulated.
have to read.
But if
read the word
Councillor Spinker's prepared this amendment,
I'm going to adjourn the meeting now. Thank you. We'll take a brief adjournment for 5 minutes. Thank you. Just to confirm, everyone, we are just having another 5 minutes. So carry on. The adjournment will be at least another 5 minutes. Is everybody back? Could we get back to our seats, please? We will be resuming very, very shortly. I don't know who we might be missing. Everybody here? Councillor, oh, he's having a chat.
Banging Gavin. Good old one.
Okay, we will resume with the full council meeting. We are on item 7, is it? Item 7, the island planning strategy. I will refer to Mr. Fernandez with some advice on the proposed motion.
Chair, would you be able to bring your microphone a bit closer to you? Is that okay? So it's hard to hear over here.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I've looked at the Constitution and thank you, Councillor Spink, for providing a written copy. It's been very helpful. I've looked at the Constitution and in terms of the proposal here, it's basically to refer something back to Cabinet. And I have spoken to the mover of the report, and it can quite legitimately be accepted as an alteration. So there's no need for a amendment debate around it. But so that's my general advice. But I suggest that we allow Councillor Fuller to address the issue. But I'll just make the point, councillors, that this is a procedural thing about moving back to Cabinet. This is not the substance of what is in here. Is not something that this council is determining at this stage. The substance will be something that Cabinet will consider. It's the process of going it back to Cabinet.
I just check that I've understood you, if I may, Mr. Fernandez. Are you saying that we won't be necessary to have a vote on this because it will be referred back? Or are you inviting Councillor Fuller to have his say before I've had mine?
Yeah, yes, no, thank you for that, Councillor. I mean, the issue is whether you have a full amendment debate or not. Yeah, and I think from if you accept it as an alteration, then you don't have to have a full amendment debate because Councillor Fuller is accepting what you are asking for as part of his report. Yeah, it's not. As far as I'm aware, it's not been fully moved and seconded. So there's no.
I'm sorry, I'm not happy with that unless what Councillor Fuller is going to say is that he's accepted the amendment and there's no need therefore for a vote, that it will go back to Cabinet. I'm happy if that's what he's going to say. If not, it should proceed in the usual way with me making my proposer's speech, anyone else making their speech, indeed the seconder making a speech. But I don't see why, if it's going to be subjected to a vote, I don't see why Councillor Fuller should have an opportunity to speak at this stage. It's not the procedure set out.
Thank you, Chair. The issue is this is Councillor Fuller's report, and he was always going to move it, and he was always going to get it seconded. So it's kind of he owns this report. Now, in terms of what you're suggesting, Councillor Fuller has looked at it and said, fine, he'll accept it as an alteration. So he's accepting it as an alteration. So basically, all you need is the consent of the council to accept it as an alteration. And then your issue gets dealt.
Sorry, it may be my fault, and if so, I apologise. Does that mean that it is agreed that it will go back to Cabinet? That's all it is.
Chair, through you. My understanding is I mean, I can't speak for Councillor Fuller, but if Councillor Fuller accepts that alteration, he's going to speak in a minute, then the answer will be that it will go back to Cabinet.
If Councillor Fuller is going to do that in one sentence from the outset, then that's fine. But I'm not happy with Councillor Fuller simply making a long speech and then we break the procedure. If he's going to say, I agree that this is an alteration and I agree that it should go back to Cabinet as set out, then that's perfectly acceptable. Thank you.
Yeah, Chair, through you, Chair. I think the procedure allows Councillor Fuller to speak on the issue. Yeah. So I think I know you might have a different interpretation of it, but I'm afraid I don't agree with you. I think Councillor Fuller can speak on this as an alteration, but I think from your point of view, your issue about referring back to Cabinet will happen because that's what you will do. Thank you, Chair.
Go to Councillor Fuller first. Okay, Jeff, if you think it's relevant.
What I'm failing to understand here is that Councillor Spink has proposed an amendment to what Councillor Fuller is proposing. And all you need to do, Chair, irrespective, you don't really need advice, is ask Councillor Fuller whether he accepts it or not. If he accepts it, then it's accepted. We can then debate the motion and vote on it at the end, and Councillor Spink goes home happy tonight. Because if we do agree the motion as amended, that's the policy of full council, and that's the simple solution.
That's
Sorry
actually
to
what I was gonna do,
interrupt,
Jeff, but
I did-
I've been letting everyone have
Yeah.
their say. But yes, I want to go to Councillor Fuller.
Good grief. Yes, I think in Councillor Spink's motion, he has, or proposal or suggestion, he has made some valid points. I know that some of those points have been considered by corporate scrutiny previously, but I am happy to take it back to Cabinet and to consider those points that have been made by Councillor Spink. I think there, and I think that was what Councillor Spink was looking for, and I'm quite happy to propose that I'm happy to do that.
And I'm very, if I may, Chair, just say that I'm very grateful to Councillor Fuller and very relieved that we've clarified that. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Jones-Evans? Oh, Councillor Lever? I don't know.
It was just to clarify, so if Councillor Fuller is now accepting that, we don't actually vote on this now, do we? We do? Okay. What? What are we voting on then? Because if it's...
If that amendment to the motion has been accepted, then that becomes the substantive motion. So Councillor Fuller has accepted those changes, which I'm not actually sure what they are. So I think you've all got copies of it now. I don't think it's changed in any way. Councillor Jones-Evans?
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to add to the confusion. What I mean, I was at corporate scrutiny week before last and listened to all the debate, and which was when this paper was put before that committee, and people were able to speak on it, and Councillor Spink was there speaking on it as well from his position, which was great. It was a really good debate, and certain things came forward and certain things didn't. And then we debated it at Cabinet, didn't we? So the main thing that Councillor Spink that I seem to recall was this paragraph 6.15. Now we seem to have got another low down below, which are all new to me, which weren't brought up. So my point is this a game of whack-a-mole with Councillor Spink? Because every time we get something, we get over the line. It was 2 years ago almost when Councillor Fuller came to us and said, we need to get the dips brought to full council, but actually there's a few people got some issues, so let's give it some time to work through. Absolutely fine. That was almost 2 years ago. We can't afford to delay on the dips, and also how can we afford to run out of time on this and start all over again? I mean, how much did you say was?
660,000.
£660,000. The data we're getting that we've got is getting out. So I'm concerned this is coming to Cabinet, but there could be a big budgetary issue with this as well. Plus, there may just be more things that come up. Councillor Spink thinks about during the next month before it comes to Cabinet.
I know, but you are,
I just think it's really, I
cabinet
just think it's
member.
really poor. It's not showing a responsible attitude to either the Isle of Wight or the Isle of Wight Council.
we are speaking on the substantive motion, which with the amendment in it now. So you are allowed to have your 3 minutes on it. So Councillor Jones-Evans is allowed to speak on that. So I'm taking a list of those that want to speak on the substantive motion.
I've proposed the motion and I've not been allowed to speak on it. I haven't even finished reading the motion.
You did have quite a lot to say earlier, Councillor Spink.
May I just have this on the minutes, please, that you're denying me as
I would never deny you more airtime, Councillor
Just let me
Spink.
say this, please. You're
You've
denying
passed
me.
it round. We've all
All right.
seen your amendments. Well, you have told us your amendments. And
I don't mind if that goes on the minutes, that you're denying me my right to make a speech on as a proposer.
do you have a point of order, Councillor Spink?
Point of order is that
Councillor Lilly has a point of order. So I'm going to speak to Councillor.
deny the right to speak as a proposer. I don't actually want to speak as a proposer. I want that on the minutes.
Right, so you don't want to speak, Councillor Spink. Well, I'm going to go to Councillor Lilly first because he's got a point of order.
Chair, if I'm correct on a point of order, the amendment wasn't seconded, right? It needed to be, I believe, seconded. Then it was actually seconded. Oh,
Councillor, we have a substantive motion. Councillor Bacon?
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to ask two things. One, a point of clarification, and one, a point of information, if I may. The point of clarification, can I ask if the piece of paper that has been circulated, that now stands wholly in place of paragraphs 8 and 9 of the report? Is that what the amendment now stands as? What is the actual composite of the original recommendation and the amendment? I'm understanding this piece of paper replaces paragraphs 8 and 9. If that's not the case, could that be explained? And perhaps while that's, because I can see Mr. Fernandez looking, could I also ask a point of information which the cabinet member may be able to help with? We have been told, it's been alluded to by Councillor Jones-Evans, that there is a deadline at play here, whereby if approval of the DIPS and moving it to the Section 19 consultation is delayed beyond a certain date, all the work falls. We lose that work. We have wasted, I think the figures being given is roughly in the region of £750,000. Could we just, for the information of the chamber, have that date, please, which we should not go past without those two consequences? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller, do you have some or all of that information?
Yes, I have got that information. I spoke to, I've got this clarification and I'm sure that I'll be brought to task if I am wrong. But Regulation 19, there has to be a statutory consultation with that. That takes 6 weeks. It takes a further 4 weeks to bundle up the representation from officers. And if we are going to delay it further, we are in danger of running out of time. I've spoken to my lead officer, and she advises me that we can delay it for a very short period. And I think a commitment was given at Cabinet the other night from Councillor Jordan that there was that Cabinet was prepared, and he was prepared after for further information to come up. If the I know that Councillor Spink has helped to support a planning officer to verify the exceptional circumstances matters. And we were anticipating that an extraordinary meeting of the council could be held, and there was time to allow that. what we're going to do instead is provide that extra time to consider those matters that Councillor Spink has raised. And there is just about enough time to do that. But again, the longer we leave it, the more the data that we're using to substantiate our case as a council starts to collapse. You know, we have kept on dithering and delaying this from the past. And by doing so, we are in the current situation where we are running very short of time. Originally, this was supposed to be discussed in January, but again, we were asked to delay this by members, which we did. We delayed it by 2 months, and we're being asked to reconsider some of the issues again. But again, I know that some of the matters raised by Councillor Spink was also considered by Corporate Scrutiny Committee and not accepted by Corporate Scrutiny Committee. So again, there are things that perhaps Cabinet may want to relook at, and this offers an opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Councillor Bacon?
Yeah, could I actually have an answer to the question? The
I think
question.
that might have been asking for a date, an actual date.
Question very
Okay.
simply was, we've referred to us running out of time. That suggests there's an actual marker which we're up against. What is that date? I'm sorry, with respect, could we actually have an answer to the question?
Councillor Fuller, if you're going to answer that. We want an actual date, an actual deadline date, I believe that was the question.
I don't know what that actual date is. We've been told it's about 3 months.
There's no one to confirm that right at this moment, but I'm sure we will get that date at another time. Mr. Fernandez, did you want to clarify any points?
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of the questions Councillor Bacon asked, which was about, you know, what happens. As the alteration has been accepted, that is now the substantive. So I think basically what it means is that Council is not approving the island plan today. It's referring things back to, because it can't, it's referring the issue back to Cabinet, and then it'll come back to full Council depending on what Cabinet has considered. That is the impact of the alteration.
But was it, nobody else wants to chat on that or speak on it? We can go to the vote on that substantive motion that the report goes back to Cabinet to look at those additional points. Councillor Spink, do you want to talk on it at this point? I believe this is the correct point for you.
I think I'm exhausted. We'll just go to the vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right, all those for that substantive motion that the report goes back to
We have a name
Cabinet.
vote. If all councillors request.
Four.
4. Well, I propose a name vote, please.
Vote. Okay, you were saying that you want a named vote. Just okay, right. This will be a named vote. So just make sure we've got the paperwork. Are you okay to call out the names? Thank you, Mr. Fernandez.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Andre,
We've delayed long enough. Against.
Councillor Bacon,
Abstain.
Councillor Dorr,
Against.
Councillor Downer,
Against.
Councillor Fuller,
4.
Councillor Jones Evans,
Against.
Councillor Lever,
Against.
Councillor Lucioni,
Against.
Councillor PC Wilcox,
Against.
Councillor Stevens,
Against.
Councillor Garrett,
4.
Councillor Lilly, Councillor Sarah Redrup,
4.
Councillor Stewart,
4.
Councillor Beeston,
4.
Councillor Blake, 4. Councillor Churchman, Councillor Drew,
4.
Councillor Henry, Councillor Mosdale, Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Oliver. 4. Councillor Outlaw. 4. Councillor Price. Councillor Quirk.
4.
Councillor Ray Redrup.
Not here.
Be absent. Apologies. Councillor Robertson.
4.
4.
Against.
4.
4.
4.
Abstain.
I'll also abstain. Thank you. That is 23 for, 9 against and 3 abstentions. So that is now carried and we'll go back to Cabinet. Thank you. We had a break, so we'll move on to the next item, which is the report for the Cabinet Member for Children's Services, Education and Corporate Functions. And this is updates to staff and member car parking policy. Councillor Bacon is going to introduce this. Councillor Bacon.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the report appears starting at page 341. As paragraph 2 notes, there was a motion at full council last September requesting consideration and review of the current staff and councillor parking arrangements. The current policy having been in place since July 2006. I'm not going to go through the paper in great detail. Members who are interested will have read it, and it details the proposals that were considered, the manner of their consideration, and the assessment of those. But that is effectively summarised at paragraphs 28 and 29, the evaluation of the report. And as I say, without going through everything in, I think, unnecessary detail here, the proposed amendment is essentially one to the parking arrangements for blue badge holders at County Hall and Westridge, and they have been incorporated into the draft policy, which follows on from the paper appearing at page 349 onwards. I don't think there's the need to say any more about this. There have been no questions I'm aware of since the paper was published. So I'm just going to move to the recommendation that full council approve the proposed change to staff and member car parking policy to agree to amend the car parking policy to allow for free parking at County Hall and Westridge for staff and members who have blue badges. And I'll look for a seconder.
Can we have a seconder? Councillor Bacon, Councillor Andre. Okay, does anyone else want to speak on this, or should we go to the vote? All those in favour of this policy? Anyone against? Any you're against? Cole's against, Councillor Love. And any abstentions? Okay. Moving on to item 9, the report of the chairman of the Pension Fund Committee is an amendment to the terms of reference for the local pension board. I have Councillor Jarman to introduce this. Councillor Jarman.
Thank you, Chair. I won't take up very much of anybody's time on this one. It's a single word change in the document. Previously, we had an issue where there was an obligation for an elected member to be on the pension board. Rather than that being an obligation, we've changed it to word may. The point at the moment has been, I have to say, and congratulate him to Councillor Fuller for taking on the challenge of raising himself up from the pension committee to the pension board and fulfilling that post. But in future, the issue may arise again, and the may leaves it as optional in terms of whether an elected member is or is not on the board. I'll look for a seconder.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Ward. And Councillor Ward, would you like to speak on it? No. I have Councillor Fuller who would like to say something.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, I've volunteered to be on the local pensions board. Therefore, I think I need to declare non-prejudicial interest in that I am a member of the local pensions board and I'm the only Isle of Wight councillor on that board. So therefore, I think I may have a conflict of interest. So I will be abstaining from this.
I think we will then go to the vote on that. All those in favour of that change? And anyone against? And abstentions? Councillor Fuller. Thank you. Okay, that has passed. On to item 10. This is the report of the Future Governance Working Group, a progress update. And I believe Councillor Brodie is going to bring this to us. Councillor Brodie.
Thank you, Chair. At January's full council this year, full council noted the recommended framework that the working group were working to. You also agreed for the working party to work with the monitoring officer and senior officers on constitutional changes. And finally, you also agreed that we should make a progress report to this meeting, and that's what you have before you today, and pages 363 to 382. We are still, the Future Governance Working Group is still working on the Constitution. We intend to present to a full council towards the end, hopefully at the beginning of May, and I'll come on to that in a second. And this is the report that was required by the January full council. The report covers the risks that we understand entirely regarding moving to a change in May of this year, and also outlines the consultation plans at page 380 that will be put into place after this meeting once you've noted the report. We're still awaiting the financial implications, but they should be with us soon. I would advise you all to bear in mind the budget decision from the amendment by the Conservative and Empowering Islanders group that the costs of any change should be zero cost once implemented. So bear that in mind. The majority of the full Future Governance Working Party, still the clear majority, still believe that this is all deliverable in May of this year. I'd like to thank the efforts of the senior officers and the external consultants who've been assisting with us, appointed by the Chief Executive. The next thing to do will be for us to present the new constitution to you, potentially, though it's not cast in stone yet, to recommend to you a Section 9 KC2 decision to be implemented from May of this year. We haven't decided on that yet. We need to see what the constitution is, etc., that's presented to us by the senior officers and external consultants. To that end, I need to propose tonight, and it's nice and short, so I haven't printed it off for you. It's one sentence, and thanks to Justin Thorne for this. He wrote it, not me. It would be much longer if it was me. That full council agrees to hold an extraordinary meeting of full council on Wednesday, the 1st of May 2024, to consider a detailed report as to whether the council should make a change in its governance arrangements. So I formally propose that. I'll look for a seconder from the working group once I've finished. I'm happy to answer any questions and to hear any comments. Obviously, we've got the motion after this to deal with, and I formally propose the report to you, in particular paragraph 3 on page 363, which says to note the progress made to date, comment and make contribution to the considerations to be taken account of in the development of the proposals for a change in governance arrangements. I look for a seconder for that, and I look for a seconder for the proposal to have an extraordinary full council on Wednesday, the 1st of May. Thank you, Chair.
So, Rhoda, did you request that was someone from the governance group? And I don't know who those members are. So, Councillor Ward, okay, you second it.
Chair, I've got a question of clarification, if I may.
Okay, I was going to ask Councillor Ward if he wanted to speak on it first, but no. Okay, Councillor Jones-Evans.
So we've had another, I guess it's an amendment or another item to go to decide on with this report. But the recommendation, which Councillor Brody pointed out on page 363, item 3, note the progress made to date, etc., etc. So are there any comments that we make this evening going to be taken into consideration? So everything we say this evening, if we make a contribution that we would like to see this or we'd like to see that, that will then form part of the recommendation. That will be written up, will it?
Thank you, Chair. From the very beginning of this, the working group has been politically proportional. Every group has been part of that. The group from which Councillor Jones-Evans is a member has 3 representatives on there. I have constantly urged them to consult with members of the group and to bring their comments to the group. Some of the comments have been brought as part of our deliberations last autumn, and obviously anything that's fed in at the moment will also be taken into account. There's been an email address available in press releases about this process back in the autumn, and about a month ago we're starting to get a few comments in, because this is an arcane subject, even though it's very important to the way in which a council runs. So yes, it will be taken into account. I would encourage every councillor to feed in, either use that email address, which I believe is in the report or on the press release that was issued today, or pass them on through your 3 representatives. The 3 representatives for the Alliance group, which Councillor Jones-Evans is a member of, are Councillors Lucioni, Councillor Fuller, I believe now, and Councillor Bacon. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Brady, could I just confirm that those comments tonight will also be fed in, but there is those other options to feed in as well through the
Anything
reps?
that Mike said to that
Yeah.
will be taken into account. Of course it will.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to come back, Chair, but
Councillor
it's
Jones-Evans.
unclear because I have fed through, as Councillor Brody knows, I have fed through our representatives, and I've come back, I've been told that my comments have just been disregarded. So, but this is a recommendation we are making as full council. So I want to be absolutely clear that if I make a comment this evening or a contribution, that will be recorded as part of this recommendation, because otherwise we could say all we could say this evening, but they could go back to the working group and they go, well, that's not relevant. But the thing is, we don't have the full information, so all we're doing is lots of guesswork. So that's why we're asking questions, and to have things thrown back at you as being irrelevant, I find frankly quite worrying.
Okay, Councillor Mosder.
So can we just have?
Can I come back to that, please?
I
A
just
comment was made, Chair. I'm being asked questions, surely.
wasn't sure. I thought it was just a comment rather than a question.
Well, it needs refuting. You can't just leave something like
I thought
that.
you'd already said that the comments tonight could be taken into account.
I would say any comments that have been made since the officers have been involved in this, which is since January, are being recorded. I don't manage that process whatsoever. The email address I have no access to. That will be reported to the working group, who meet regularly with members of the council staff and with the external consultant. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mosder.
So my understanding of this, so we can have some clarity, is we basically, Councillor Brody has recommended a motion for us to have another meeting on this to basically vote on the full report. We've had a report in front of us, so any debate we have now will be on whether we have a all council called in May to actually vote on this. That's right, isn't it? So the debate won't be the ins and outs of what is happening with the governance system. That's fed through your reps. The discussion that we would have now is on the motion that has been put, which is whether we will have a vote to have a vote in May. That's it, isn't it?
I believe so, but I think if there was a councillor that felt they weren't getting listened to, that through the group system, through that referral system, wasn't getting listened to, that they could speak at this meeting as well. That's how I believe that exchange has gone past.
It's a recommendation. It's printed in our papers. It's a recommendation that
well,
Councillor Brody put
sorry,
forward. The
Councillor
recommendation.
Jones-Evans, what I
Two
just said,
separate things here.
Councillor Jones-Evans,
There's the date.
what I said
and
is
there's
this part.
Excuse me,
Claire.
Sorry, I asked.
I'm just trying to clarify a couple of points, so please don't talk to each other across the chamber while I'm just trying to check things, please. So I'm just clarifying that obviously the report is just for noting. There will be no vote on the report, but we are asking for a vote on the extraordinary meeting date. But we can discuss the report. So because obviously there is questions to ask before we agree to that meeting date, because they may feel like that isn't appropriate. So Councillor Stevens.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say on the relevant page of agenda item 10A, page 363 is the recommendation, which includes comment and make contribution to the consideration. And I think that was where Councillor Jones-Evans was coming from. That if you want to make a contribution and a comment, then this is the place to do it. Thank you.
Councillor Stevens. Councillor Bacon.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to make a couple of general comments, but what I'm saying is focus primarily on what we are being asked to vote on this evening. I think I've broken cover before. I'm the member of the full governing body who does not think that May is a realistic implementation date. I'm not opposed to a committee system fundamentally, but I have asked a number of times, perhaps rhetorically, but I'd be interested in people want to answer this. Why are we working to, our work is based on a difficult time scale rather than achieving a good result. And that time scale, in my view, is inhibiting the quality, potentially the quality of what is being done. As Councillor Brodie has said, we still know nothing about the finance of this. Although to some extent our hands are tied because it turns out it costs 1 penny more, it can't go ahead. But it is worrying that we simply do not know the answer to that question. And as has been pointed out a number of times, many things are simply being put to one side to be thought about in the next council year and not before we are due to take a vote on this. And I have to ask, why is there this rush? Why is there this rush to get something done? And why the rush to get something done when the largest group in this chamber, who now appear to be in favour, have always been opposed to this? That would suggest to me that people would want a rather more detailed forensic approach rather than just pushing this through. So I'm against the proposal for a May extraordinary meeting because it promotes the rush rather than promoting a full and proper consideration of this issue, so that when we go to a committee system, we are confident in it. It works. Everything has been thought about in advance rather than us pushing through to a system where a lot of things simply will not have been considered. And that is a particular worry when, as we know, that if we make that decision, it binds this council for 5 years. There is no going back. If there is, pardon my French, but an unholy cock-up in the process of what is created, we're stuck with it. So I would be more than happy if we were working towards a May 2025 implementation, as I think that would allow things, ensure things would be done properly. And I would have every confidence if we were working towards that date. But as it is, I'm afraid my view is that this process is potentially inadequate and tainted. Thank you.
Councillor Muster.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Bacon. My feelings on it are, if we have spent a lot of time in the governance meeting, I think if you put it to May 2025, we'll have further pontification and actually more officers' time and more expense spent debating this and looking into it, when actually I think May this year, there is enough time to do it. You talk about finances, actually it will be even more expensive if you went to May 2025, or we're just going to not employ anybody to actually spend another year debating it and rewriting stuff. And then to answer your question about the Conservative group, I've never actually voted on a committee system before, so I wasn't there. I know you voted on a committee system before, I think before I was a councillor, and you voted for it then, didn't you? But I've never voted for a committee system. I wasn't part of the council when it was debated before, and I can say that I'm very pro a committee system, especially after seeing the last few years, and no real decisions being made on anything. A committee system can't be worse than this. Thank you.
Councillor Love.
Thank you, Chair. I've kind of started at the beginning where I was very much in favour of having a super modern committee system. And what I'm feeling and thinking about this is that actually it's a committee system which is out of the 1900s, slow, clunky and inappropriate for a modern day operation of a council that spends over 300 million a year. That is where my position has moved to. So this week we've had in the Observer a comment, and thank you for that, because I think the public do need to know more about what is going on, because they don't really have any idea, because the strategy, the communication strategy is poor. It's extremely poor. If I was to go out through that door now and ask members of the public if they knew anything whatsoever about the new governance system, nobody, I'll bet you nobody would be able to answer that question at all. So I've got a couple of points to make here really. Is cost, is if I look at points, well, basically from about 47 downwards, and the risk assessment, which is clearly a risk assessment which says about the dangers of moving at pace. And that is my problem with this, is that we are moving at pace. And one of the things that Councillor Brodie mentioned was about zero cost. Well, actually, we've employed 2 consultants and I would like to know how much those consultants have cost, because we've already spent money. So this is not a zero cost operation. And my point is, at a time when council tax is increased, at a time when people's homes are falling off cliffs, and we don't have very much money in the pot, and we are telling people we cannot do X, Y, and Z, we are spending money on ourselves, on a system. We are self-serving, so as to say, because as of yet, I do not understand how this benefits the people out there at all. Nobody has told me how changing this system will make any difference out there to the people of the Isle of Wight at all. Nothing. And what's the point of changing a system for our sake if it's not going to benefit the people out there? Okay. So, and I want to know that answer. I want to know what the answer to that is. This will benefit these numbers of people by doing X, Y, and Z. And at the moment, I'm hearing a self-serving. It will benefit us because we will change the way that we work. Now, we might disagree about some of the way that it works, okay? And it's not a perfect system. But is this the right time to be spending? And we've had this conversation before. Even if it's 50,000, I'm guessing that these consultants have cost 50,000. And I want to know the answer to that, because we've already had, we're not spending any money, but we are. And then there's all the time that all of the officers are putting into this. This is important to understand in terms of for the general public. So I'm saying, how much money is it? And I want to know what benefit it's got for the public. And none of that has been explained. Tell me before I make a decision, because otherwise I'm not making an informed decision about anything. I apologise for going over.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Love. Somebody want to give him those answers now, or come back to him?
Chair, can I just say a lot of these questions have been asked by Corporate Scrutiny Committee, and some written answers have been given through the chair of the working group. I think they're very legitimate questions, and I have expressed concerns around some of these issues, but they have been asked and they have been circulated on email to all councillors. I wonder whether it'd be more productive if those individual councillors, re-raise them through those channels.
I think Councillor Brodie did alert us to some ways to get in touch with somebody, the group, as it were, with their comments. So we've got those comments tonight from various councillors, and I think they will be fed back into that anyway. So before we go forward.
So I'm not getting my answers.
I don't know if you're getting your answers this evening. Maybe from other sources. I will go through my list anyway of people that would like to speak on it. So I've got Councillor Garrett next.
Thank you, Chair. First, as Chair of Audit and Governance Committee, I should report back that we had a discussion on this matter on Monday. The full extract of the minutes, if it's not already been circulated, will be circulated. If it has, that's great. But some of those points have already been raised this evening, of concerns around timing and of finance, of risk, and particular issues around whether or not certain posts should be voted for separately or together. So, but that will go out there. What I see here is very much the phrase "at pace." Working at pace does not necessarily mean you're working at a rush. Councillor Stewart was always very keen, former Councillor Stewart, I should say, was always very keen in the previous administration of pointing out the importance of working at pace. I agree with him on that one. I think by working at pace, we are able to achieve a result such that if we resolve tonight to have an extraordinary meeting at the start of May, we'll have a set of papers before us where we can make a considered decision. We're not making a decision tonight. We're making setting out the further process for making a decision, which may be to reject the idea, to accept the idea and put it in place for the annual general meeting of May 24, or potentially for May 25, or perhaps we may even decide May 2200 and something, or whatever. I don't know. None of us would be around. Councillor Love makes a very important point. What is the benefit? You've heard me before. I served on 2 councils which operated a committee system. The whole of 7 years on Southampton City Council with a committee system, and 2 years before we were forced to go in under a cabinet system on Bournemouth Borough Council. What I can tell you is that the benefit to the member of the public is that they see that their councillor goes and sits on a committee, discusses issues amongst other councillors, and then has a vote that has real executive power. It's not just what happens at scrutiny, where there's the common complaint, and I think it's often not properly founded, isn't being listened to, but to have real power, that's the thing. I'm sure all of you, Councillor Love himself, I'm sure, finds residents saying, but where's your power? Where is it? And for me, if we continue with the cabinet system, I just will keep having to say, I am not a member of the cabinet. I have very little power. Whereas if I were appointed to a committee, on that committee, I would be part of a collective body with executive power. It was my experience in those 9 years under a committee system that what happened was councillors debated sensibly, compromises and syntheses of views came forward, and then once the decision was made, overwhelmingly what happened was it was owned by all the councillors who had been present at that vote.
Thank you, Councillor Garrett. Councillor Lilly.
Thank you, Chair. I just really, it's to feed in. I have already fed that into the committee, particularly about the Policy and Scrutiny Committee regarding health and social care, because that is the one committee that is actually linked to the Health Select Committee in Parliament, and it's the one committee where the NHS have to actually come along as well as the Isle of Wight Council's adult social care and public health. And it's very, very important this island does have a body within its structure that brings the NHS to account within that. We recently had this with a number of things like GP surgery closing, a dentistry, and we do need to have the connection between the public, so there is at least one body on the island that actually can bring the NHS, and that is even more important now because practically all our NHS is now run governance from Hampshire across the water, so it's very important we have that. So I would just ask for Councillor Brodie to, in the deliberations, make sure that, and with the legal department, that we do keep that statutory health scrutiny part within the structure. And I was just looking at the diagram and it wasn't actually there. And I just do feel that it does need to be there because it's a different from having an adult social care committee, which would be to do with what the council does, as opposed to that scrutiny role for the NHS. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Councillor Jones-Evans.
Thank you, Chair. I will speak on this paper. I just want to point out on page 372, we have been asked as two options to be voted on. And I'm really confused about that because we had a recommendation on the first page. On page 372, we've got option 1, option 2. So I just like, again, before I use my 3 minutes up, what exactly is the situation with this paper?
I will just check that for you.
Would it be helpful if I just carried on talking while they're looking at that? Because it's not material to what I've got to say. It's just a question. Thank you for the opportunity to talk on this. I said I have fed back through the channels that have been made available to me, and also I was at scrutiny. Councillor Robinson, the issues I raised at scrutiny weren't part of the scrutiny recommendations, so I didn't get answers to my questions. So please, I hope you allow me to express myself free this evening. Thank you. One of the main things that I was concerned about was the statements that were made in the report that we had in December. One part of this report said that the future governance working group shall, amongst other things, consider how other local authorities have made a transition back to the committee system of governance model and what lessons can be learnt from that experience, and shall consider examples of best practice to inform those recommendations. I asked for further clarity from a senior officer and I wasn't given any information because apparently the documents for the working group are their documents and not shared with officers, so they're not able to be given to me via that route. But in the paper we've got today, item 50, paragraph 50 on page 373, it just says that other local authorities have afforded a minimum of 12 months from the point of passing the Section 9KC resolution. Now, we're not asking to do that. You're asking us this evening to make this resolution on the 1st of May, and then 2 weeks later, you actually go into that. So that's what I'm really concerned about, that we're not following what we said. We're not looking at the guidance from other local authorities done this. And look, I'm not for or against this. All I want is evidence. I just want to be shown which is the better model for us, and I want to have all the information. And Councillor Brodie wasn't able to give it that scrutiny because, as he said, that the paper wasn't written. That's fair enough. But why isn't it written? It's not written because we don't have enough time to be able to consider this properly, and I'm really concerned. Again, another thing I'm concerned about is the risks. It always says there's a risk to delivery of services, and we've got to have a tolerance to risk. Well, what tolerance of risk are we going to have? Is it like, oh, someone didn't turn up for a committee meeting the other day and the committee had to be adjourned, and consequence of that? Or is it actually an officer has made a serious error? It's cost the authority hundreds of thousands of pounds. We have no guidance here about what tolerance is. I mean, we talk about there's risk to our reputation. We need to avoid potential governance failures, and this is all in the report. You read this report thoroughly as someone who wants to make an informed decision, and as councillors, we need to make informed decisions that we are doing the right thing for our residents, but we're not being allowed to do that. And there's also the best value consultation duty as well. The council under statutory duty to consult under Section 3 of the Local Government Act 1999 for the purpose of deciding how to fulfil its duty under that section is to make arrangements to secure continuous improvements in the way in which its functions are exercised, having regard to a combination of economy, efficiency and effectiveness. So please, can we be shown the evidence that this move is going to tick all those boxes? And I'm with you, but we just going at you call it going at pace.
Jones-Evans. I think we're moving on to Councillor Fuller now, please.
Thank you. I'm a supporter of the committee system. I think Councillor Brodie knows that I'm a supporter of the committee system. I think the worry that I have, having sat on the Isle of Wight Council's committee system, I think I'm the only person here that is long enough in the tooth to have done this. But having sat on that, I found that it worked very well. The reason that it worked very well was because the meetings took place on a regular basis. They took place I think there were plenty of committees you could join. I think there was 6 members of the 6 committees at the time, and they met every 6 weeks. And that allowed process to take place quick. I think the worry that I have with the paper that I see in front of me, and I apologise to Jeff for not attending any of his meetings. I still have a very full diary, and trying to slot in the committee meeting is very difficult to do that. So please accept my apologies, Jeff. But I feel that having your 4 committees that are meeting on a quarterly basis is not really incredibly democratic. I also worry about officers making delegated decisions and not involving councillors. And I think that that is perhaps moving away from the transparency and openness that a committee system would have. And I think it's something that I would like to see delved into, probed a little bit more before I can fully support it. I think that the concept of a committee system is fantastic. I think that what worries me is the proposals that we see in front of me is doing a committee system on the cheap. And I know that it will require more staffing, more resources, and I don't want to see that undermining our democratic process.
Thank you. Councillor Jarman.
At pace, working diligently, with focus and without undue delay. That's the purpose here. I'll say it again, diligently, with focus, without undue delay. Nothing in that implies any disregard of process or undue haste. I think I need to give my answer to Councillor Love, and I will put it this way, that the residents and businesses of this island can benefit from the ability, the experience, and the expertise of all 39 of their democratically elected representatives. And that simply is not the case today. And being able to benefit from that widened pool is a substantial benefit to this island. Thank you.
Stuart.
I'm very simply going to tell you my experiences and why I would support this committee system. As you know, I deal with the Neighbourhood and Regeneration Committee. One of the problems that I've had is that for a variety of understandable reasons, I've had 2 committees which have become inchoate during that meeting. That's a Policy and Scrutiny Committee. I suspect, and certainly all the evidence that I've seen and heard, is that if we have a proper committee system, you will have a substantial input from all councillors in a much more coherent fashion. I think that that is to be looked forward to, and I would strongly support your thinking about going towards a committee system. I would also mention that within the committee system, I have seen cross-party working and substantial amounts of work from colleagues across all parties. And I suspect that a committee system will invariably pull out expertise within the 39 councillors that we were not otherwise. In my view,
Councillor Daw.
And it's not just that. How's that? Like a
We're not very clear. We're not hearing you, councillor Doyle. We're going to find. No, well, I think we need to have the online. We need to have a microphone because of the online element. Okay, we'll try again.
Language.
Quite, Christopher, quite. So, for the third time, congratulating Councillor Brodie and the working group for a stellar piece of work. I mean that most sincerely. A lot of time and effort has gone into this. I too do have concerns of the timescale as a whole. I put my hand up for it, and I believe in the committee system because I think it is effective and it's a better and more cohesive way of working. It's more inclusive as well. On page 366, which is para 18, there's an element here. There will be gaps and or unresolved issues. Then on to 367, something that jumps out. There will be limited opportunity for council members to take a comprehensive view on any constitutional changes being made at this point. That is a pretty big concern. Although the implement the new model at speed, well, everyone wants 20-mile-an-hour zones, don't they, in their wards? And we know that speed carries additional risk. Officers will use their best endeavours to deliver the best solution within the timetable that they can. But we all know that officers are incredibly stretched with a lot of their workloads at the moment. Moving over to para 27, this is something Councillor Mosdell picked up on, actually, suggesting that we might have to pick up some more employees. There's a real risk here that actually we might lose some of our existing employees. There's a statutory requirement for the council to consult with its affected employees, where any changes proposed would change their terms and conditions of contractual requirements of employment. That concerns me too. Para 35, extremely challenging timescale. There's a certain level of capacity that we've got for working, and I support the principle. I genuinely do. But I do think we need to slow it down somewhat, get the evidence on the table before we actually implement it fully. I think that is the most sensible and indeed responsible attitude to adopt here, so that we can discharge our democratic duties representing for those that have elected us. Thank you.
Councillor Quirk.
In the dim and distant past, I worked within a committee system for 12 years. And for Councillor Love, there are advantages. It's transparent and open. 90% of the decisions that are made by councils are non-political. A cabinet system makes everything political and adversarial. It isn't adversarial when you get a committee system with a good chairman working together and you get things done. So I have support for it. I've seen it go wrong, and when it goes wrong is where you get members not turning up to the meetings, and that's a potential. But as long as you've got decent sized committees, then they can work very, very well. People talk about risk, but there's actually risk in not doing it quickly, because at present we've got a chamber of people who know what we're talking about, and in a year and a half's time we'll have a chamber of people, half of whom possibly won't know what we're talking about. They'll be absolutely new to the whole system, and the advantage of actually going this year is that you have the opportunity to bed the system in, sort out your if there are any glitches. Most accounts, people ask for the data. Most councils, when they change to a committee system or back either way, are doing it with a complete review of their constitution. We're not. We're just taking the elements that are related to the cabinet or committee system and changing those elements. So it's not the huge job that some councils make it. That can follow. We've been talking about that for some time, and so we should, that should still happen eventually. But whatever you do,
you're likely to have to sort of make little changes to it in the future. And if you think that's not going to happen, you're in cloud cuckoo land. I personally think it's good to go this year. It'll bed in, and when you've got a new council next time round, all the systems will be working. The one other advantage of a committee system is it helps to differentiate the roles of members and officers. Because quite often when you've got a cabinet system, the roles of members and officers get quite intertwined. And a cabinet system helps to actually disaggregate that confusion.
Councillor Stevens?
Thank you, Chair. I've sat and listened. I'm impressed by the pace that this paper's come forward when we consider what's been left by the wayside over the last year or so. So I congratulate Councillor Brodie and his working group on actually moving things forward, getting external consultants in at whatever price Councillor Love, but we'll find out. And I think that, you know, when we start to read elements of the paper, there are little jolts, warning jolts that we should be very concerned about. Now, a few years back, I was sat where Phil was, Councillor Jordan, trying to bring in a committee system, along with some very ardent supporters of committee systems, not just a cursory wave of the hand and, well, this seems like a good idea because we can all join in together, boys and girls. It was actually something that we wanted to try and bring forward, and we ended up bringing forward what we've got today, which are not just scrutiny committees, they are policy and scrutiny committees. And if they were worked correctly, as they're set out, rather than just scrutinizing all the time, you would find that you would have more opportunity to input into the policy of this council. Unfortunately, it's fallen by the wayside a bit. And so I just want to point that out. We tried to bring it in at once. There was some, and I don't know political about it. I mean, people were against it. The majority of people were against it. So we went down the route of doing something that appeased the situation and took us through. Not the best, but not the worst. But the main thing was it was functional and it was brought in over a period of time, not just a few months. Now, my concern is with this, is that great if we can get it all done and dusted and robust enough to take forward a multi-million-pound industry. That's great. But if we fall by the wayside, like other local authorities up and down the country are trying to dig themselves out of going too fast, too soon at committee systems, you will find that the men in suits from central government will intervene. They will come down, and those people outside this building at this moment in time, who really don't give a toss on what form of governance we've got, will actually be pushed into accepting, if you like, mainland comment and mainland authority coming here and taking forward their services or not as they think fit. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much indeed, and I wish you well with your committee system.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to speak on this? Oh, Councillor Lever, that's it. I thought I had another.
Thank you,
hand.
Chair. Just wanted to make my position clear at this point, because having been originally on the working group to begin with, in principle, like most people in this room, I think I'm in favour of a committee system. I guess the few things, I just want to raise them in this meeting just so it's heard. I am concerned about that since I've come away from the working group, and now there's more detail coming out. I am concerned about the risks with the time frame we've given in the first instance. The second thing I'm a little bit concerned about now, having looked into it a bit more, is the overarching policy, finance and resource committee and the makeup of that. It feels a little bit like a pseudo cabinet, which is something we're trying to negate against. So I'd like some clarity, maybe a bit more information on how that would function, just to ease that concern. Ideally, I'd like a third option here, which is to continue with the process, but to amend the date of effect to May 2025. But I appreciate that's probably not, it's not available now. But given the information that we're now receiving, I'd prefer to do that because I don't want to stop this happening, but I feel like the time frame we're sticking to at the moment is too.
I second that.
Point of clarification, Chair, not that it's my role, but I understand on the 1st of May, it'll effectively be a twofold question, whether to proceed with a committee system, one, if yes, when. So there will be two parts to the question when it's asked, as I understand.
I will just get clarification on that point.
Chair, that it's probably better for the chair of the working group, but that is correct. The 9KC resolution as to whether to proceed will be in May, and the timing of that will be suggested for councillors to agree or not.
I think that it's good to clarify that point if people are unsure. Okay, does anyone have Councillor Luciani?
Again, I'm on the working party, but I have been speaking to the LGA and some peers that are doing some work, going back to cabinet and some going to committee, and all have said the timescale is between 18 months and 3 years to do it. So I'm just really mindful of that. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've all had enough time to speak on that with comments. The report is noted. So with that report is for recommendation, but we do have the vote to come to on the dates. But I'm going to come to Councillor Brodie before we go to that.
Thank you, Chair, and I've listened very carefully to everything that's been said. Some of the comments I agree with, some of them I don't agree with, but it's not down to me. It will be down to full council on the 1st of May if you agree, if you agree what I proposed earlier on. All of those comments that you've made will be taken into account. Some of them will be taken into account, some of them won't. I did say in my opening remarks, there is no certainty we will be proposing a section 9 KC2 or whatever it is on the 1st of May. No, I haven't seen the beginnings of the final document yet. We hope to have that soon, and then the working group will make a decision. So it'd be useful, Paul, if you made sure that you turned up to represent the view of your group, you know, and the rest of because the Alliance group have been the poorest attenders, I have to say, at those meetings. But yeah, I would just say very quickly, one of the first questions I asked when we brought the officers in January was, is it achievable? And there was no doubt about it. It is achievable, but there are risks. I understand that, but there are risks in everything in life. And so finally, I would just say, if I took advice from the LGA, I'd never do anything. So I formally, yeah, as I've said already, the report is for noting, but I've also hope that you'll support an extraordinary council to deal with this issue on the 1st of May, Wednesday, the 1st of May. Thank you very much.
I think Councillor Luciani just wanted to say that she has attended all the meetings, perhaps.
Wait, when you say the unofficial meetings, the informal ones, there are a few I didn't come to, but since January, I've been to all of them. Thank you.
So we're moving on with the vote now, I believe. Yep. So I want to get this right, Claire. There's been a lot of talk and clarification of points. So we have to be sure what we are asking of people. So we are asking for the date of the extraordinary general meeting to be voted on. So all those in favour of that date? All those against? And the abstentions. Thank you. That one's carried, yep. Okay, so that we will move on to item 11, which is a motion submitted by councillor Love. Do you want to continue with this motion, councillor Love? Yep.
Yeah, can I just get clarification on this again? We've just agreed a report that outlines a consultation report, and I did draw attention to that in my opening remarks to the last item. Do we really need to be discussing this, which would, to be frank, would be the most fantastic consultation I've ever seen this council do in my 5 terms on this council? We don't even do all of this for budgets, which I would suggest is far more important than this issue. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Love.
Response. Yes.
Councillor Love.
So my motion is about the processes of a motion of consultation. And I'm pleased that you say it'd be the most fantastic consultation, and so it should be. And so should all our consultations with the general public who we represent be fantastic. I'm not going to go back over old ground. That's what I'm not going to do. The point that I make here is I said from the beginning, from July, this is not something that I've just dropped in. I've been saying from July, the full public consultation needs to be done. And that full public consultation needs to include everything, not part of things, but everything. So once we've decided what it's going to look like in terms of committees, how much it's going to cost, once we've considered and got answers to all of those things, including constitutional matters, this needs to be consulted on, not in part, which is what is proposed. And I noticed that in your report again, in the Observer, that you said from March the 20th, a full consultation will begin. Well, in actual fact, that consultation cannot begin because there is no information to inform people about, apart from, hey, folks, we're going to have a change of governance. Now, a proper consultation, which has meaning to the people, includes alternatives as well. What does that mean to the public? So we've had, and I do actually recognise that Councillor Brodie did do something in the press this week, but that's practically the first thing that our community has heard about this. What I'm saying is people need to understand what the benefit is to them, and we won't go into that again. They need to understand that fully, and they need to understand that against what they currently have. They need to understand what the finances are. And we've already had, and again, I don't want to go into it in any detail, but we said that this would be at zero cost, and it's already above zero cost because we're employing people and we're spending hours and hours of our time doing it. Okay, so people need to understand what the cost benefit of A is and what the cost benefit of B is, so that they can make informed decisions. And I think that's really important. Now, some people have suggested that the public out there aren't really interested, but they will be interested, as I said earlier, I don't want to go over it again, in the fact that, you know, we're spending perhaps 200, 300, 400,000 or perhaps £5. Of course, it's going to be that, Jeff, because actually we've already spent at least 50,000 on consultants and our time putting this together. That's all a cost. It's not a pretend cost. Officers doing things, officers having to move to a training system, it's part of that risk element. So people need to understand what are the risks in this as well. And that's why I'm saying we need to do a proper consultation. This is the biggest governance change that we have done for a very, very long time. And we can say, well, it doesn't really mean anything out there to the people. Well, if it doesn't mean anything out there to the people, somebody's going to have to explain to them why we're spending, I'll just use £100,000 because you don't like the big figures, and it will be big figures because we've got to reorganise. We're talking about 6 months training for our officers. What is the cost of that? That has been stated. It's in the document that you've presented, 6 months training. What cost is that? That could have paid for Andrew Garrett's extra 2 or 3% in terms of council tax relief. We are losing officers from this council, and we are telling them, by the way, we're spending £100,000 reorganising this council. That could have kept people in post, couldn't it? Now, my point is, whilst that's one element, I want to see a full public consultation where people are explained to what this means for them, what the benefits are, and what it means for them in the future. Because I'm sorry to say, what I was expecting was an all singing and dancing new governance system. And it's not. You're talking about something out of the arc. Meeting 4 times a year to make important decisions about public health and well-being and spending on finance. That means that officers are going to have to make decisions in between. But of course, then we're going to have this super duper new system in the middle, which needs explaining to the public, where 9 elected people, including the chairs of the 4 elected, will all come together. Isn't that just another cabinet system in a different name? Of course it is, because people are making decisions there at that committee, 9 elected people. But the point is, I don't want to go into that now because we're waiting for all of the detail. It needs to be explained to the people properly in a full consultation, and we need to then consider what the public have said before making a decision. That's my point there.
Do we have a seconder for Councillor Love's? Julie, Councillor Jones-Evans? Yes, okay.
Yes, I'd like to second that motion. Thank you, Councillor, for bringing this forward. It's really important that we do consult our residents on this really important change, proposed change to our governance system, because this is about delivering our services, and we need to know that any change is going to be. Sorry, is there a problem?
So those in the gallery, sorry, we can just hear you slightly picking up the feedback. So if we could be a little bit quieter, sorry to ask. Thank you. Councillor Jones-Evans.
Yes, it's important that we consult properly with our residents, because this is about delivering their services. And really, as Councillor Love sort of said, you know, any change has got to be a change for a better delivery of their services. And as I pointed out when I spoke earlier, we're under obligation in the Local Government Act 1999 to consult, and it's about things being more efficient, and, you know, improvement in delivery on services. I think that's really, really important, fundamental thing for me. And that hasn't yet been explained. And I think it's so important that we are going into this eyes wide open. If we have to consult for 28 days, and someone puts a table and chairs outside their shop or their cafe, why aren't we consulting on this most important change? But if it's not important, then why are we putting so much resources into it and rushing into it? And it's going to be fundamentally changing everything. We are going to, from whatever's in front of me at the minute, we aren't be having enough committee meetings. There is going to be a pseudo cabinet. There are going to be more and more officer delegated decisions. There are going to be mistakes. There is going to be more money thrown at it. Have we got enough councillors? The questions go on, and it's all in this report, and the questions aren't being answered. And you go through your channels and you put these questions forward, they just get thrown back. That's irrelevant. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter about that. Because we'll just work that out afterwards, or we'll write the constitution afterwards. Even just do a constitutional change takes a year. That's just writing the document, never mind actually the whole way that we all work. Not only just us as members, but our officers as well, who work really, really hard. And that consultation, as Councillor Daw pointed out, is absolutely fundamental. I would like this to go to the vote as soon as we can. I'd also like to ask for a named vote on this, because I think it's really important that we say to our public, we will ask you your views, because we are working on your behalf and your views matter.
We haven't got that much time left, but I think we did discuss this topic quite in depth in the last hour. So I don't think we need to take lots of debate from the floor, but we could then, I've got Councillor Outlaw would like to speak. So I will take a couple, but I think we've got to go to the vote if we're going to do it. So Councillor Outlaw.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate, Carl, you're quite passionate about this, and you've spoken to it quite clearly, and I understand your concerns. I'd like to ask perhaps Councillor Fuller would be able to answer this. This council used to have a committee system, but it changed to a cabinet system. Was such a similar and comprehensive consultation done then when it moved from a committee to a cabinet system? So that might benefit any decision on making whether such consultation is required and necessary now. And secondly, to a point with regard to Councillor Jones-Evans's comment that this is so important because it's about services, I would just say that I don't believe the public were consulted by this cabinet system when they chose to end the partnership with Hampshire over children's services. Thank you.
Councillor Churchman.
Yes, well, I must say, Councillor Love and Councillor Jones-Evans, you have far more faith in the general public than I do.
And you're a councillor representing them. What does that say to your
public than I do in replying to Could you let me finish, please? In replying to consultations, the last by-election, I think in Ventnor, had something like a 21% turnout, 23% turnout. Most people in the whole country are not interested in politics. We are lucky even at a general election if we get near 38% of the population voting. People have families, lives, phones, walk along the street, ignore their children because they're on their phone, on Facebook, etc. I would love to see a consultation where everybody replied to it, but I'm sorry, I just do not believe it will warrant the expense and the time. Procrastination is the thief of time.
Councillor Brodie.
Thank you for bringing me in. For the information of everybody in the room who wasn't around when Paul won. In fact, he didn't win in 2001, did you, Paul? Yeah, no. Oh, that's true. You didn't lose, you just moved. In 2001, the cabinet system was brought in by dictatorship, basically, Tony Blair. It was statute. They decided that this was the model that they wanted to impose on councils with, 50, 60, 70 members. The system that applies at Westminster, where there are over 600 members. You can't possibly have, committees deciding all the legislation at Westminster. And they decided this was the best. And Tony Blair, if you read any of his memoirs, which I've had the misfortune to have done over the years, was very clear. He wanted cabinets to be imposed on local government, so they'd be more decisive and, frankly, less transparent as well. I mean, that was the underlying message, and that has always been the case. But it was brought in 2001. I wasn't a councillor then, but I used to sit up there where the two people are there this evening and watch, and I opposed it at that time. And frankly, I've watched it ever since, best part of 23 years now. And it's never been an enhancement of public services on the Isle of Wight. It's entirely politicised local government. Whenever the Conservatives ran it, it became somewhere you just never got anywhere near. It was like a steel wall. When the Independents run it, it's chaotic. You know what I mean? That's what it was 2013 to 17, and frankly, that's what it is now. It's non-transparent, it's unaccountable, it's not open. As an ordinary member of this council for nearly all of all my time, it's almost impossible to achieve things unless I use my force of personality to do so. And I've been very lucky with the ward I represent, where I've had Section 106 monies to use, because of the huge housing development we had in my ward. That's been my real boon. To be frank, I support the leader of this council, but I don't think he's talked to me since. because I'm an irrelevance. You know, all that really matters is the 8 members of the cabinet who are all members of the Alliance, some of whom are competent, some of them are incompetent, but you know, you can work those ones out for yourselves. In terms of this consultation, we've always been committed to consultation. What I would remind everybody in this room about, Councillor Bacon sat here back in May at the annual meeting last year and delayed this for 2 months by recommending to you, Chair, that it be deferred because you could, so as the Cabinet could look into the budget implications. And when we got to July, 2 months later, they had no budget implications to make. I urge you to oppose this motion. I will vote against it. It's unnecessary and it's Cabinet members just desperately trying to hang on to their jobs. Thank you.
I don't think that's true, but I'm going to go to the votes. I'm going to let Councillor Love speak momentarily, and then we are going to go to the vote because we have 5 minutes left. And it's going to be a named vote. I need 4 people for a named vote. So that's Councillor Lucioni, Councillor Lever, Councillor Jones-Evans and Councillor Stevens.
Thank you. I just want to thank everybody for participating in the debate. I am passionate about this because I've always believed in inclusivity. And I'm sorry, Councillor Churchman, that you feel like that, but it's about the opportunity, equality of opportunity for people to decide if they so choose to participate. That's the important point that I feel there. Councillor Outlaw, I appreciate the comments you've made, but we've moved on. This is about best practice and about us doing our best. Harping back to what did or didn't happen 10 years ago in a different system doesn't help. So, but I want to say to you, thank you for the debate. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. But I believe that people should have a full, proper, transparent system. And I haven't really picked up on what Councillor Jones-Evans has said in terms of, you know, if we can have a 29-day for a chair, then that's it. Okay, so thank you very much. And that's me done. No.
No, we're going to the votes. A point of information.
Report with a consultation schedule attached to that. We've now got one being presented to us, and I asked this at the start of the debate and nobody answered to me, that contradicts that. Now, in terms of the Constitution, as I'm sure Mr. Fernandez will confirm, or I will confirm it for him if he wants, is that once you've made a decision on one item, it cannot be reversed for, I think it's 6 months without nearly the majority, I can't remember the exact number, I mean nearly a significant number of councillors requisitioning it. So I'm trying to understand how my group can go forward if this motion was carried, because I've got a shed. Do you mind? I'm trying to speak. I didn't speak over you, Carl. Do you mind? Okay. I'm trying to understand precisely what happens here, because I've been chairing this. I've worked bloody hard over the last few months, Chair, and I think it's incumbent on you to do something good for once tonight and actually make a decision to give me some proper advice.
I'm going to get that advice now.
Has been an absolute shambles.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the points made by Councillor Brodie, I think what Council needs to understand is that this is a noting report and an opportunity for comments to be made about, you know, which can be taken elsewhere. The Council's not making a particular decision here. The motion would be a decision. The report isn't. It's just noting, just information.
We need to go to the vote then because it's very late.
No. Sorry, I need clarity on that. So what
is your clarity?
What is for information, Chair? I'm not sure what is for information. I don't care if you stand up.
Information was that
I can assure you how badly behaved a councillor can be if necessary.
It is correct.
Can you explain to me which one is for information?
We move to the vote. We're just going to do it by show of hands. So those.
Oh, no.
Name vote. Could we read out the names?
Okay, thank you, Chair. I've got to be quick. We're running out of time. Councillor Andre,
For.
Councillor Bacon,
For.
Councillor Dorr, Councillor Downer, Councillor Fuller,
For.
Councillor Jones Evans,
For.
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 Abstain.
Against.
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 Chair, it's 9 o'clock. The meeting should be terminated now according to our constitution. This vote should now be terminated and the meeting should be ended. Thank you, Chair.
And that's democracy, is it? Halfway through a vote.
We are allowed to finish the vote. We are in the middle of a vote. It is in the constitution. We're allowed to finish the vote.
But we started the vote.
And the chair's decision is that we're finishing the vote.
Well, those that wish to depart, depart.
Councillor Mosdell,
Can we have debate, not hate, please? Thank you.
Councillor Nicholson, Councillor Oliver,
You have been stalling the meeting on purpose. So we gave you the information, we carried on, and he's going to finish the vote.
yeah, Chair, Chair through you, Chair. If I can,
You let the
Fernandez,
others
can
speak,
you let
please?
Mr Fernandez talk, please?
yeah, Chair.
Jeff, I don't mind how much of a shambles I am. I will take that on the head because
Chair,
this is the way we are trying to deal with it tonight.
Yeah, Chair, if I can just make the point that the management of the meeting is for the Chair.
We are finishing the vote.
This is an unconstitutional vote.
Can we please
What's
just
what's the provision, please, Chair? What's the provision, Mr Fernandez, to allow a vote to continue beyond the 3-hour time limit? Where is the constitutional provision, please?
Chair, through you, Chair, the ruling of the Chair is final. Yeah.
Chair can't
the
rule
ruling-
In the
against
middle of a vote,
Constitution.
and I ruled that we carry on until the vote is finished.
The ruling of the Chair is fine. No, the ruling of the Chair is fine.
The ruling of the chair is final, and I say we finish the vote. So we will finish the vote.
I'll just finish that.
If you choose to leave before the end, that is fine.
Count, please.
Councillor Nicholson.
in which case my vote is carried. You're not going to do it.
Councillor Nicholson.
You're leaving, not me. You're leaving, not me. You're leaving, you have the opportunity to vote it down. Or you can leave, or it will be passed because we've already voted.
Not finished until I say it is, because we are halfway through a vote and you're making it last even longer. But there is, because I said so. I am the chair.
Show me the power in the Constitution.
I am the chair. and
Show
I
me
can
the
read that.
power of the Constitution and I'll stay.
Chair's decision is final.
And what will the general public think of this? Children walking out halfway through a vote. That's what the general public will see.
Some of them will think that you don't approve of the Constitution and they won't like that.
And they can